Well, do you know, it appears that Labour have added a betrayal to their tosspot qualifications. Let's begin. Now, of course, it seems, doesn't it, that with every day that passes, we've got another reason to say "I told you so" to all those people that presumably thought that voting Labour would actually be a good thing, when now I doubt they'll ever vote Labour again. Because let's face it, they've only been in a little while and they've already peed off the entire country. And now that it seems they're not entirely happy with doing that, they want to add another thing to pee us all off. But just what is that thing? Well, the word betrayal comes to mind. And I say that because according to this article it says Keir Starmer trying to undo Brexit as island trip raises major red flags. So what is going on then? Well, Sammy Wilson, the DUP member for East Antrim, has warned that Brits and unions should watch very carefully at what Sir Keir is doing. He told the Sunday Telegraph it could be one of two things. Northern Ireland could be used as an excuse for undoing Brexit. And, of course, at the moment, Northern Ireland kind of are shackled to the EU, aren't they? Through that horrible, in my opinion, Windsor framework deal that Rishi put through. Because that not only shackles Northern Ireland to it, because they are, as far as I'm aware, still in the EU single market and therefore surely have to follow all their rules. But it also shackles us because we can't diverge too much from Northern Ireland. Let's just say, for example, we want to lower VAT to 5%. I mean, we'll be lucky if we ever see that in our lifetimes, but in theory, we could do it if we wanted to, because we're left that horrible organisation, in my opinion, which is the EU. But as far as I'm aware, Northern Ireland couldn't do it because they are still under EU rule. And therefore, we will never do it, because if we did, it would pee off Northern Ireland more than, I don't know, a midget try to reach a top shelf magazine. But that's not it. He continues and says Northern Ireland could find itself further sacrificed where the UK government then agrees with Europe. For example, they might say, well, look, we're not going to complain too much about what you want to do with Northern Ireland, your imposition of regulations in Northern Ireland, or your disruption of trade in Northern Ireland, if you're prepared to do deals with us on the things that matter to Great Britain. I mean, you can just see them saying that. In fact, if anything, I don't know if it's just me, but I can imagine Keir Starmer going, oh, please let us rejoin. We'll find us some way to do it via the back door. Either way, though, do whatever you want. That, I think, would more be realistic of what Keir would more than likely do, if anything, I'm sure. And quite rightly, he says, we warned the people of the United Kingdom that there was always a danger, despite what they said, because with the Labour Party, they were never fully committed to Brexit. And I don't think they were ever committed to it at all, because remember, their leader, Sir Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer, he's no sir to me, but anyway, he was their Brexit secretary, and of course when Jeremy Corbyn was leader, he campaigned. He went sharp, it seemed, about the people's vote and presumably hoping to undo Brexit. Well, I'm sorry, Keir, it didn't work. It done nothing but pee us off, and if you continue along these lines, you're just going to pee us off more than what you've done already, which, let's face it, Labour, since they've got in, have done nothing but, it seems. Keir Starmer apparently also said, again, that he wants a closer relationship with the EU whilst on a visit to Ireland, which, let's face it, only cements that opinion in my mind. It does seem that he's had a little bit of a helping hand, though, because it seems he's got a little bit of advice, and just who might Keir Starmer listen to? Someone, let's just say, who isn't very popular at all. No, I'm not talking about someone like James O'Brien. I am talking about Tony Blair. So just what's going on then? Well, according to this article it says, Tony Blair blames Brexit for increasing immigration as he urges Keir Starmer to get a grip. If anything though, Tony, I think you are the one who needs to get a grip, I'm afraid, and just accept the fact that we voted leave as a country, whether you like it or not, in 2016. And yes, I know, I can hear all the keyboard warriors just getting ready to comment, but I'm sorry, we did, didn't we, eh? Speaking to The Independent, the former Prime Minister said that the vote for Brexit was primarily about reducing immigration. Well, as a Remain voter, presumably, he wouldn't have a clue why people voted for Brexit. I mean, yes, immigration was up there, but I'm pretty sure that sovereignty was the main reason. Obviously, I'm a Leave voter, and that is why I, and I'm sure most other people, voted for Brexit, to regain our sovereignty and get out of the claws of the EU. Because let's face it, we surely had the illusion of sovereignty before, eh? He said it was absolutely extraordinary that Britain had voted to take back control of migration, and yet the numbers across the Channel, as well as those legally migrating, were increasing. And yes, admittedly, you would have thought immigration would have gone down a bit, but there is two things which kind of stood in the way of that. Number one, lefty lawyers, and number two, it seems the government didn't really have a backbone to stand up against those rejoiner MPs and just say to them, well, sorry, we've left whether you like it or not. And unfortunately, there was some sort of compromise rather than a full-on, we're leaving Brexit. Because, of course, there was a whole we're crashing out argument which they were trying to push out towards the country quite often, it seemed. When, let's face it, I don't think it would have been crashing out. I think it would have been cashing out, because we would have had 2 years of a transition period whereby to get ourselves ready rather than seeming to stay in the in-out deal which we've been stuck with. Because let's face it, Northern Ireland has been the casualty of Brexit in my opinion, because they are in the EU in all but name it seems, and unfortunately, as I said, it makes it very hard for us to diverge from them. Even though of course we have struck our bespoke deals with a lot of other countries, something we could have not done while we're still in the EU, which, thinking about it, all this probably crap that Keir Starmer's going on about, saying he's trying to do a trade deal with Germany. Germany, of course, is an EU member and therefore has no authority to do their own trade deals, surely. Because let's face it, we couldn't until we left. And Germany is still in there, so you can't have it both ways, can you, eh? And get this, Tony Blair, who claims he's in regular contact with Sir Keir Starmer, at Downing Street has urged the new Prime Minister to get a grip on the country, starting off by repairing the relationship with the EU. Well, I wonder what he's suggesting to repair it, eh? If anything, he's more than likely hoping Keir Starmer would be on his hands and knees, with his hands up, and saying, take it all! And this comes at a time, remember, where Keir Starmer continues his tour, meeting with individual leaders of EU member states as part of this reset, as he calls it, with the EU and Brussels after travelling to Dublin on Saturday. But surely as a bit of a kick in the gonads, shall we say, for Keir Starmer, a report in the Mail suggests that leaders in Brussels are unhappy with Mr Starmer's approach of dealing with individual leaders rather than the EU as a whole. Well, no doubt, of course, he's doing that because he's trying to, and admittedly I could be wrong, but he's trying to, in my opinion, seem as if he's not trying to go back in to the EU, where if he actually meets the EU as a whole, it will more than likely say he is. One diplomat apparently is cited as saying the EU hates the idea of separate little deals because it would damage the EU project. It's all or nothing for them. And he went on to suggest that the actual reset in relations between the two sides would require Starmer to compromise in two key areas. But just what are they then? I'm pretty sure we can all guess. Apparently, according to this, it says Mr Starmer would have to return the freedom of movement for EU citizens under 30s to the UK as part of the youth exchange programme, which of course is what we've heard about already, haven't we? Which Keir Starmer, as far as I'm aware, said, no, we're not going to do that. And the other concession suggested that the Prime Minister would have to exempt EU students from the higher international student fees UK universities charge to other overseas students. Well, I'm sorry, no. The EU, whether they like it or not, is surely classed now as a third country. And that is something they'll have to deal with. If we charge higher fees for someone coming over from somewhere like America, then surely we'd have to do the same from someone coming over from the EU. And before anyone goes on about Erasmus, where UK and EU students could go over and just everything was fine and brilliant for them, what they're forgetting is there's something called the Turing Project, which enables our UK students to go anywhere in the world to study, as far as I'm aware, not just the EU. And the thing that Ramonas, or Remainers, or Rejoiners, or whatever you want to call them, seem to keep forgetting is the world is so much more bigger than the EU, whether they like it or not.